Welcome to this video. The second is actually too. My apologies for again being gone for golf. I'll make these videos more often than not, especially when I'm gone for either sporting events or when I'm gone just in general. So that way you can kind of have these notes that you can kind of follow along with. I know sometimes the sub may not know as much as they need to for the specific subject. So I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize this stuff. Once you're done with this homework, you should have received hopefully, or excuse me, when you're done with this worksheet, you should hopefully receive two different sheets. So one of them is, again, the toolkit for geometry. Hopefully, again, you're pretty familiar with those. You had them in Algebra 1. And then also the homework packet and the student guide as well. So again, the student guide is just going to be everything that we go over through geometry. And then, again, the homework packet, that'll be due, again, obviously, when next time when I see you. So in this case, that'll be on Friday. So just keep that in mind. Again, thank you for being flexible. Again, if you know how to do most of these problems, feel free, like, you can just kind of keep on rolling. Again, work in your groups today, especially, that'll kind of help you kind of get along the goal along. If you need, again, some help, I'm going to go kind of one by one on these problems, and that way you can kind of get your questions answered. So the first one, it says find the area and the perimeter of each of the following figures. So in this case, again, how you find the perimeter, remember, perimeter, I always remind myself, perimeter is the outside of the figure. We're going to be dealing with perimeter a lot this year. Um, and then the other part is the area, which is pretty much the space on the inside. And we'll talk about volume as well. But in this case, these are the two main ones that we're going to kind of get started with in geometry this year, especially. The next part is looking at, again, how we can actually find this area. So in this case, if we're looking, what we have here is we got a figure that kind of looks like a rectangle-ish. So it's kind of like an indentation taken out of it. So what I like to do, again, is kind of solve these problems by just kind of labeling the specific parts. So in this case, again, I know that this one is 2. So this other side, whatever the unit is 2 as well. The other side here is 8. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 8 there. And just kind of keep on rolling with this. So in this case, again, as you can see, what I like to do again to find the areas, I mean, you can go ahead and divide it up. You can go and make this one, you can go ahead and make this one. What I like to do actually is just actually just finish up the rectangle itself. So if you look here, again, if I make that entire rectangle, I can actually find the area of the original rectangle before that piece was taken out. So if I do the multiplication here, remember length times width gives me the area of a rectangle. So if you didn't remember that, always write that out as well. So area equals length times width. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply. So in this case, I do 10 times 8. That gives me 80. And again, whatever the units are. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take away the entire figure. So in this case, that small piece, I'm going to subtract that part that was taken away. So in this case, if I'm looking here, what I'm doing is I'm doing a little mental math. If I look here, the top of this entire figure is 10. This part is 2, that part is 2. So this means this part right here has to be the remaining part of what is left over, which in this case is that value of 6. So therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little multiplication here to get the missing piece of that rectangle. So I'm going to do 6 minus 2. That gives me 12. And when I do so, I get a value of 68. So therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this. I'm going to go 68. And now you may remember area. In this case, area, remember, is just units squared. So in this case, I'm going to do 68 units squared. Now the next part, perimeter, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find that value. So the perimeter itself, in this case, is just going to be adding the outside. So therefore, we're going to go ahead and find that. So therefore, we're going to go ahead and add 2 and 2, which in this case is the value of 4, plus another value of 6, which is 10, 12, 14, and then we start getting into some bigger numbers. So we got 14 plus 8, which gives us the value of 22. 22 plus 10 gives us 32, and 32 plus 8 gives us 40. So in this case, that's going to be 40 and then units. And again, these aren't anything fancy because it's just a one-dimensional plane. So in this case, again, we can just use that value as 40 units. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you skip number 2. The reason why is because circles is not something that we're going to be talking about right away. This is something that kind of comes up later on, especially in chapter 10. So what I'm going to have you do is just put an X through that one. Again, if you want to use that, you can totally go for it. But in this case, again, we won't talk about the circle area or circumference formula for a little bit. Number 3, what we're looking at here now is we're going to be looking at a triangle. So in this case, the triangle is, again, kind of a unique shape. So we talked about a rectangle's length times width. The nice thing about a triangle is it's actually very similar to a rectangle. In this case, meaning a triangle's area formula is going to be length times width, but divided by 2. Meaning, what I can do with a triangle is I can actually make 2 different triangles with the same dimensions of the rectangle, meaning the length and width, and there's going to be two of them that fit in that specific rectangle. So in this case, if I kind of drew this out and went like this, went like that, as you can see, we have a triangle with another rectangle there. So we're going to learn about the definition of what actually makes a rectangle, what actually makes a triangle, which is kind of cool. But we'll kind of go ahead and kind of add that here as we see that. Next part, we're going to go ahead and find the area. So if you remember, area of a triangle, again, is length times width divided by 2. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. So how I can always tell what the length or the base is I can always find the height of this. So therefore, if I'm looking here, the height of this triangle is the one that makes a right angle. So if I look here, here's my right angle, here's my base, here's my width or my height, and I'm going to divide it by 2. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 14 times 5 divided all by 2. So 14 times 5 gives me the value of 9 or 70, excuse me, then divided by 2 gives me the value of 35. So I'm going to get 35 units squared. So not too bad, as you can see. Again, once you kind of find the values, you're like, oh, this isn't as bad as you thought it was. Now the last part is just finding the perimeter. So all you got to do is just add the values on the outside. So 7, 10, and 14 all added together. I believe give you a value of 31 if I remember correctly. Yes, 31 units there. So those are just a couple of talking points. Obviously, geometry kind of gets that rap of, it's all about shapes and stuff. And again, it very much is, but again, it's understanding the characteristics of what makes them a specific shape. So in this case, again, a triangle or a rectangle. And again, we'll kind of add more as we kind of go along. You probably have heard of parallelograms and kites and all those. So we'll be adding those as we kind of go along this first unit. Now, the next part, hopefully, again, you're pretty well versed in this kind of math. In this case, again, what we're talking here is we're talking actual algebra. So in this case, these are the order of operations. We've talked about these again for a long time now. This is what we call, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So if you remember that little acronym, what it says is it says basically the order of operations in math starts with parentheses. So if you see parentheses, you're always going to do that first, followed by, then in this case, exponents, which again will come after the parentheses, and then mother is in dear in this case, or multiplication and division. Now, the nice thing with multiplication and division, in this case, again, whatever comes first, left to right, those are what you do. So in this case, again, if it's division and you say multiplication on the same problem, you work from left to right. One doesn't supersede the other. And the same thing for addition and subtraction. In this case, again, one does not supersede the other, so therefore, again, you can just work left to right as you see fit. Now, for number 4, what we're going to do is we're going to simplify. So it says 2 times, and then parentheses 9 times 5 plus 3 squared plus 4. So what we're going to do is, again, consult the PEMDAS. So parentheses is going to come first. So in this case, parentheses is going to be in the stuff on the inside. And now I'm going to just do my order of operations, again, as I see fit. So I'm going to write 2. Now, you can write the multiplication symbol there, or in this case, you can just write it next to it as well. Again, I just do it next to it because it's just easier in my brain. And I'm going to do 2 times and then 9 times 5 plus 3 squared. So I'm going to start with my order of operations, parentheses on the inside, but I'm going to do my exponents. So I'm going to do 3 squared, which gives me 9. And then I'm going to have 9 times 5 plus 9 plus 4. And now with that order of operations again, so now we got 9 times 5 plus 9 in the parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and do the multiplication here. I'm going to do 2 times 9 times 5, which gives me 45, plus 9 plus 4. And then I'm going to finish out the parentheses. So in this case, 45 plus 9 gives me 54 plus 4. And now what we end up noticing is we end up having multiplication. So in this case, I'm going to just do my values. I'm going to do 2 times 54, which gives me the value of 108. But then I got that value of 108. If I add 4 to that, I'm going to get a value of 112. Hopefully, again, you figured that one out pretty quick. Again, these problems aren't as bad as you think. Again, it's just making sure that you know the order of operations and being able to kind of fill in the values as you go. All right, so now if you want to, go ahead and pause this video. Again, see if you can get these values, 5, 6, and 7. Maybe work in groups, work with a partner, and then you can kind of figure out those answers as we kind of go along. All right, stop the video. Welcome back. Hopefully, again, you figure out these values. I'm going to go a little bit quicker for 5, 6, and 7 here because in this case, again, now that you kind of see the order of operation, you can kind of go along a little bit quicker. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to work parentheses. So in this case, I'm going to do 22 divided by 2. So in this case, I'm going to work on the inside, so that's going to give me 11. And now you see a negative 2 times 5. So remember, negative 2 times 5, what that's going to do is it's going to give me a negative value, and then minus 10 with that, and then square. And then I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do plus, and now I'm just going to keep rolling. So I'm going to have 4, and then minus 6 times divided by 6, which in this case is going to give me a negative 1. Because remember, two of the same value numbers. Again, 6 times some number gives me 6. That's obviously 1. And I'm going to have 4 minus 1, quantity squared. And now if I keep on going with that, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take that 11 minus 10, which gives me 1. So I'm going to have 1 squared plus, and then 4 minus 1, quantity squared, which gives me 3 squared. And now I just do the rest of the operation. So 1 squared gives me 1, plus 3 squared, again, gives it the value of 9. So 9 plus 1 gives me the value of 10. Okay, so again, hopefully you got that pretty much figured out. Again, it's obviously not too bad, as you can see. And when you just kind of keep rolling. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the next one. So in this case, again, we're going to do 5 plus 2 cubed times 22 divided by 11 minus 3 squared times 4 plus 5. So now we're going to go ahead and write those out. So order of operations, as I do the parentheses first, I'm going to go ahead and do 5 plus 2 cubed. If you want to go ahead and just do that one right away, again, this one, obviously, exponents are going to come after the parentheses, but you can kind of simplify as you kind of go along. So 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. And then multiply by, so in this case, those values, 22 divided by 11, which gives me the value of 2. In this case, you do not have to put the parentheses anymore. If you want to, again, you can put the parentheses with the multiplication. And then minus 3 squared. So in this case, little fun fact for you. So if you see this in parentheses, so say you see a negative 3 squared like that, that means the parentheses are squaring both 3 and the negative. So in this case, 3 times 3 obviously gives you 9, but two negatives multiplied together also give you a positive 9. This one right here does not have that value for the parentheses. So what we need to do is we need to actually just square the 3. So therefore, 3 squared gives us 9, and I'm going to keep that negative outside there. 9, and then multiply by, and then 4 plus 5, which gives me 9, so I'm just going to put the parentheses there. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and keep simplifying. So in this case, as you can see, I'm going to get the value of 5 plus 8 times 2, and then negative 9 times 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work from left to right. So 8 times 2 gives me 16, and then minus the negative 9 times 9, which gives me negative 81, and then 5 plus 16 there. And last but not least, you just put the terms together, 5 plus 16 minus 81 gives you the value of negative 60. All right, hopefully you figured that one out pretty okay. Again, as you can see, we're kind of just rolling along here to get these values here. Number 7, we got 2 plus 5 times 7 minus 5, quantity cubed. So in this case, or excuse me, 2 to the 4th, I should say. So now we're just going to do again the order of operations. Operations A, parentheses, 7 minus 5. So we're going to 2 to the 4th plus 5. And I'm just going to put the parentheses, 7 minus 5 is 2 cubed. And now I'm just going to do the order of operations again. So my exponents come next. So 2 to the 4th. When we see exponents, remember this repeated multiplication. So I'm going to do 2 times 2 times 2 4 times. So in this case, if you need to write it up, please do. And sometimes I just write it out for myself just to make it easier. That's the whole mental math there. 2 times 2 gives you the value of 4. There's another value, 2 gives you the value of 8. One more 2 gives you the value of 16. My apologies, the air conditioning is going on. Now we're going to have plus 5 and then 2 to the 3rd, which in this case, 2 times 2 times 2 gives the value of 8. And now we just have 16 plus 5 times 8, which in this case we do 16 plus 40. That gives me the value of 56. All right, hopefully you figured that one out okay. All right, now, in order of operation, this is what actually our first quiz is going to be on, if you can actually believe it. So if we're doing A-OK right here, again, you're going to be golden for that first quiz that's coming up next week. I believe it's going to be Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll look for you and kind of remind you from there. And then the last part here for number 8, what we're going to do is we're going to actually solve for a variable. So some of you, again, actually remember this. We've actually done this a lot when you were in algebra. You were actually solving for a variable with y equals mx plus b form. So finding that slope intercept, you remember graph the slopes, the rise and run, and then the y-intercept. So then therefore you're able to find those values. This one, again, you're going to be solving for the y value here. So some of them, again, are going to look kind of similar. In this case, this one actually is slope intercept form. I put it in there. And I think this one actually will be as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to solve for y here, and we're just going to simplify. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that negative or positive 3, and I'm going to, or positive 3x, and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to do negative 4y equal to negative 3x minus 24. Now, keep in mind, if something has a letter, so a variable, for example, so in this case, the value of x, remember, that is not the same thing as that value of 24. So you can't put those terms together. So you can't have the value being 27x. So please make sure, again, that you don't do that. Again, just put it in your back of your mind. Do not combine unlike terms, I guess is the best way to say it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and divide by negative 4, because in this case, anything that's written together, so example, negative 4 and y, it means multiplication. So I have to undo that by dividing by negative 4 on every value. Negative 4 divided by negative 4, that cancels, gives us the value 1, or gigantic 1 in this case. Y is equal to negative 3x divided by negative 4, which is 3 over 4x. And then just a negative 24 divided by negative 4, which in this case gives us a positive 6. All right, and there's your value. As you can see, yeah, nothing too bad. I mean, you just kind of put the pieces together, and now you got your slope, you got your intercept. What you solved for y, you got it by yourself. So again, that was our goal. You got it by yourself. Order of operations are satisfied, and we're good to go. All right. And the next part, in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and solve for y here. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. Some students like to distribute that value of 2. Some of us like to divide by that value of 2. What I'm going to tell you is probably distribute that value of 2 first, just so it's easier. In this case, again, so you got less values to worry about. So this way, again, you're not dividing everything by the value of 2. So therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get 2x, and then 2 times the negative 4, which gives me negative 8, minus 4y is equal to 6. And now I'm just going to go ahead and put my like terms together. So I'm going to take that value of negative 8, move it over. So I'm going to 2x minus 4y is equal to 14, I believe. Yep, 14. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing I did with x. So I'm going to move that over. Negative 4y equals negative 2x plus 14. And then I'm just going to divide by that negative 4 on both sides. And I'm going to finish up. So I'm going to have y. Those cancel again. Negative 2x divided by negative 4x. That's going to give me a positive 1 half x when I simplify. Now, in this case, 14 divided by negative 4, that's not going to give you a nice number. I believe it gives you a value of negative 3.5, actually. So if you want to write that out as a decimal, that's okay. What I'm going to tell students, though, is usually leave it as a fraction because it's just easier to write it as a fraction. Some students, again, get confused when you start simplifying all values and everything. So what I tell them is, again, just make sure that you're doing your part, and then you'll be able to simplify no problem. So in this case, you got 14 divided by negative 4. So in this case, I'm just going to put negative up front, and then 14 over 4. Or if you want to simplify, you can do 7 over 2 as well. All right, with that in mind, hopefully you figured out these problems A-OK for the first part. We're going to go ahead and flip on the back side eventually. I'll show you the different values. In this case, number 11 got tabbed over, so if you want to put number 11 over on that side, please do. With that in mind, again, we're going to go ahead and simplify. But with that, make sure that you again, are doing your best on this. Again, I don't expect perfection on the first day, folks. The first couple of days, you guys are all just kind of getting back in the swing of things, getting your feet wet. So with that in mind, I will make a second part of this video and kind of work through these different problems, and then we can kind of go from there. But hopefully you've had a great second day. Again, my apologies for not being there. Again, make sure you have all 3 of those different things, so the toolkit, the student guide, and then the homework. So again, once we're done with this, then you can go ahead and go start your homework. It shouldn't take you too long. I think it's only on page 3, 4, and 5, or 3, 5, and 6, I should say. And then we can, again, be underway. All right. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you all on Friday.